Okay, Etna.
Yep. Okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from whatever part of the world you're ringing in from. My name is Etna Fox, and I work with National HR in the Health Service Executive. We're delighted to have you here this morning. And I suppose what we want to do is we hope that you are people that are interested in becoming medical consultants in Ireland. And Ireland has been known for many generations as the land of 1,000 welcomes. We have a very packed agenda here this morning, and we want to share all the information with you directly from the experts. We will cover the structure of the Irish Public Health Services, known as the Health Service Executive or the HSE. We will advise you on the job market and the benefits of medical consultants working as a medical consultant in Ireland, the hospital structures, and we are absolutely delighted to be joined by our colleague Dr. Cameron Shah, who will speak directly about his experience of moving to Ireland and working in Ireland. We will cover the application process for medical consultants, and our representatives from the Medical Council of Ireland, Ms Anne Byrne, has joined us here, and she will cover the registration process for consultants. Finally, we will take some time to cover the financial and the cultural supports that are available to help relocating or moving to Ireland and the work permits. You'll also have an opportunity to answer any questions or to put any questions to us, and there's a Q&A function that you're able to feed into. In addition, I am joined by my colleagues, Ms. Barbara Whiston and Ailish Kiernan, who are from National HR, who are my colleagues from National HR. I'm also very happy to introduce our clinical colleagues. We have Dr. Mike O'Connor, and Mike is a consultant geriatrician in Cork University Hospital in the south of the country. And Dr. O'Connor also holds the role of the national post of National Clinical Advisor and Group Lead for acute hospitals. We're also delighted to be joined by Dr. Emer Hearn, who is also a consultant geriatrician in Cork University Hospital. And she also holds a national post of National Clinical Advisor and Group Lead for Older Person Services. We're also delighted to be joined by Dr. Robert Aker, and Robert is a consultant in emergency medicine in the Midlands of the hospital, and he also has a national lead role on what we call the Model 3 project hospitals, and Robert will be able to explain that during his presentation. We're also joined by Dr. Danny Connachthan, who is a medical manpower manager for the regional hospital in Mullingar in the Midlands of the country, and he's very familiar with all aspects of consultant recruitment. We're also joined by Louise McEntee, who is the talent acquisition lead from Public Jobs, and Public Jobs is a separate organisation who is tasked with managing some of the consultant recruitment for the HSE. We're also the Medical Council is the regulatory body for doctors in Ireland, and we, as I said previously, we are delighted to be joined by Anne Byrne, and Anne is the registration manager with the Medical Council, and she will talk you through how you can navigate that process. From a housekeeping perspective, we have an awful lot to cover in a very short period of time. Your microphone is muted, so if you have please pop any questions that you may have into the Q&A in the Q&A sections, and we'll try and reply to them at the end of the session or by email afterwards. So please pop in your email address with it. The session, you note, is being recorded and will be available afterwards on the HSE Career Hub. And as I said, there was a huge amount of information to cover in this, so you don't need to catch everything. All of the information will be available on the recording afterwards. Now, without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Dr. Mike O'Connor. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you very much. We'll be able to move on the slides. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and it's kind of reflecting a little bit about my own journey in the health service. I've been working for the health service since 1991, and many days it can be frustrating, like working in any health service, but mostly I come across absolutely incredible people on a day-to-day basis looking after patients, and it's the same for any health jurisdiction right across the world. We saw the best and finest of our health systems in COVID, And I think it goes for all countries, but certainly the immense pride of working in the health service during the pandemic was really, really dramatic. I'm a geriatrician, so I work in Cork, down the south of Ireland. There are many, I mean, if you're trying to get a helicopter view of the health service, there are over 40, maybe even 50 hospitals across the country of all varying types. And we do have a very rich network of primary care with really high quality people who work in primary care. But, that they would be my feelings. We would be delighted to see you coming to Ireland, to think about coming to Ireland to work in the health service and contributing. And if you look at that slide there, obviously we have a multi-diversity of people working, ethnic diversity of people working in the health service, which really is its great strength. Our population has really expanded over the last number of years. In 2001, particularly for the older persons, we had 420,000 people on the census in the country. Last census in 2021, we had 730,000 people over 65, and by 2031, we'd have 1.1 million. So the population is expanding. One in four or one in five people who live in the island weren't born in the island, and that is a real change, and that has really enriched the country, both culturally and in addition to that, the health service. So we have a single health service. It's called the Health Service Executive, but is divided into 6 regions. And the next slide maybe focuses a little bit on the regions. So that is the map of Ireland. You can see the Republic of Ireland in the colours, and Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom. And then we have the four as we go around, maybe starting at 12 o'clock, HSE West and Northwest, HSE Midwest, which is the smallest of the regions, HSE Southwest, which is where I'm from, Cork and Kerry. And then as you go around, anti-clockwise around the clock, you have HSE Dublin Southeast, HSE Dublin Midlands, and HSE Dublin and Northeast. And the beauty of this reorganization of the health system, which has happened in the last 2 years, is that the governance and the authority and the organization for these health regions now takes in both hospitals and community, with an attempt to really try to focus on integrating experiences for patients, which, as we all know, can be challenging. So that's the geography piece. And then, really, from the point of view of the clinical piece, if you look at my lifetime, and I suppose we all look at it through our own lens, at the advances in the health service, we have incredibly strong cancer programs. We have incredibly strong stroke programs with stroke pathways, national stroke pathways, and referral pathways for thrombectomy for high-end treatment. We have a really good, strong acute MI or primary PCI pathways, and a network of hospitals. In addition to that, the care for women and infants has improved dramatically with a significant investment in the health service. And that investment in the health service has been really marked in the last 4 or 5 years. Centrally, we have clinical programs. We have 36 clinical programs. For example, the acute medicine program, the emergency medicine program, cystic fibrosis program, the diabetes program. So there's a number of clinical programs which guide and steer issues related to quality and patient safety, and are indeed involved in developing models of care which need to be refreshed and updated on an ongoing basis. And clearly, the role of the central function in the health service, the central function of the health service, is to ensure that we do proper integration of care across acute and community settings. I mentioned on the earlier slide, we have the regions being autonomous, so those regions that we saw on the previous map. And in addition to that, we have clinical directors who take the lead. And these are in post for about the last year and a half. So they're finding their feet, but clearly, obviously, there were other structures before that. The regional clinical directors are involved in organising networks of care and ensuring that our healthcare is safe, effective, and timely. And clearly, the centre and the regions need to work closely together. So it's an exciting time in the health service with a new change to the organisation of how we govern our health services. We'll take the next slide. And if you look at the jobs market, which is why we're here, we have over 300 permanent consultant vacancies currently listed. And that's across nearly all ranges of specialties, but particularly radiology, geriatric medicine, my own specialty, obstetrics and gynecology, dermatology, and others. So there's 300 jobs available. Uh, for those of you who are watching today and might watch back recorded, and we would be extremely interested in recruiting. And in addition to that, the consultant, and we'll see it on the next slide, but just before we go on to the next slide, the number of consultant posts is increasing year on year. There were 101 posts added to that number of total posts in the country in the first half of 2025. And there's a meeting that happens on a monthly basis to approve consultant posts. And we just had one this morning, and there were 45 posts listed for approval, new posts really, which is absolutely fantastic. And that really helps in the development of the health service. We take the next slide. And there kind of it's a nice infographic looking at the numbers and actually the spectrum of growth. So if you just look at the very right-hand side of the box, there's been a 34% increase in consultant numbers over the last 5 years, really, which is quite dramatic. And below that, then you can see that female consultants about 41% and males 60, and that's changing all the time. That has been progressively changing over the last number of decades. And in addition to that, we on the left-hand side on the infographic, we've 4,620 consultants employed, really. So, and there is a new contract that sort of went live about 18 months ago. It's called the Public Only Consultant Contract, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later on, really. The average age of consultants in Ireland, again, the bottom left of the slide, is 49 years of age. So a big growth across all specialties, enhancing the care and allowing us to implement models of care. So, uh, you know, there's been constant emphasis on refocusing on actually how we deliver services across multiple specialties. I'll take the next slide. And these are the in-demand specialties that we'd be particularly interested in focusing people on. So radiology rapidly expanded, diagnostic radiology, interventional radiology, cross-sectional radiology, geriatric medicine, my own specialty, microbiology, a laboratory-based specialty, psychiatry, large number of vacancies, endocrinology, diabetes and metabolism, obstetrics and gynecology, respiratory medicine and surgery. I think the key message is across multiple specialties, and I think it's important. Now, I suppose when everybody's thinking about what, a job, first of all, you think about the country, but secondly, you'll think about within the country, where geographically in the country. It's a beautiful country, as you probably know. And in addition to that, long evenings in the summertime, and in addition to that, lovely place to go. Coast is never far away, actually, which is really, really nice. So, uh, I remember when I moved to the UK for specialty training in the mid 90s, and someone said to me, I was thinking about institution that I would work in, but they said also address is really, really important, as in the amenities that you're close to is really, really important to factor in from a quality of life and a work-life balance. Take the next slide. Think that might, yeah. So there, I think they're the slides really that I
Thanks
have.
very much,
I
Mike.
certainly would look forward to questions, and I think I'll hand over now to Danny Connaughton, who's the medical manpower manager in the regional hospital in Mullingar.
Thanks very much, Dr. O'Connor.
Thanks very much. As Dr. O'Connor said, my name is Danny Connaughton, and I'm the medical manpower manager in the regional hospital in Mullingar. I'm just going back to the regions that were mentioned earlier. We are in the Dublin and Midlands regions, so it's a region that covers across into the Midlands. So I've worked here at Mullingar since 2001, and I've worked in medical manpower since 2004, dealing mainly with now with the recruitment of consultants, having previously dealt with the recruitment of NCHDs. So Mullingar, as I said, we're located in Westmeath, which is in the heartland of Ireland, in the Midlands. We're less than an hour from Dublin, and we're commutable by both rail and road to from Dublin within an hour. So the slide that we have here is looks at the salary scale for the public only consultant contract, which was introduced in March of 2023, and it's the consultant contract that's available to all consultants who now commence employment in Ireland. So this is the basic salary. What we're looking at, it goes in 6 incremental points from point 1, which is at 233, up to point 6, 200, up to 280,000. As I said, it's an incremental progression yearly, but there is also incremental credit will be granted if you have previous reputable experience working as a consultant. We'll go to the next slide, please. So as you can see, there are a number of key benefits to the new public-only consultant contract from 2023. It's a 37-hour basic week contract. So that means everybody works a basic 37-hour week and you're paid a basic 37-hour week. But the contract also includes up to 8 non-clinical hours and depending on your speciality per week. And that is written into your work practice plan prior to commencing in employment, and it's agreed with your clinical director. So that takes in things like teaching, your administration work, CPD for yourself. So that is written into every contract. The contract itself is a 6-day contract, so it can be rostered. The rostering can be agreed over 6 days, Monday to Saturday, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. But those, if there is Saturday work, then obviously you still get your two-day weekend, and all of this is agreed in advance of commencing as part of your work practice plan with your clinical director before the employment starts. So in addition to the basic salary, there are a number of allowances that are paid along with the basic salary. The first one there is the on-call allowance of just over 11,000, and that's a flat annual payment that's made to every consultant that provides an on-call service, and it's paid depending on your frequency of pay, whether you're fortnightly or monthly. That allowance is paid to you, and it's the liability, or it's basically an additional payment for the liability providing on call for to the hospital. And in addition to that, and it's just not on the screen there is also an allowance of up to almost 43,000 euro at the moment for on call. So when you're on call and you're called into the hospital, you get paid an allowance for the time that you spend, be on the calls, coming into the hospital, and that's the rate and the frequency of your call will depend on your speciality, and some specialities you will be required to come into the hospital quite frequently. Other specialities you'll be able to do your on call from home and do from phone calls, but you also get the allowance for taking the phone calls as well. So you're paid an additional allowance when you are on call for providing the service to the hospital. So as well as your annual leave, which you see there of 30 days per year, there's also additional leave that's available for study leave or course conference leave. That is all discussed and
I think Danny has frozen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Might be good to turn off your camera.
Sorry about that. So I don't know what is the last bit you heard, but so I said in addition to there is study or leave that's available for attending courses and conference, and there is also an allowance that is available through the public-only consultant contract of up to 12,000 euro per year to claim back. That covers the expenses incurred when you attend courses, conference for registration with the different bodies. And in addition to that 12,000 euro, there's also an innovation fund which is available of up to 8,000 euro per year. So that is for any consultants that would have come up with anything, be it innovative practice, innovative equipment. You discuss it with your clinical director, you get approval, and then it goes through to the National Doctors Training Program, who will get approval. So there's up to 20,000 euro per year that's available to consultants on the public-only consulting contract for improving themselves and for their CPD. And go to the next slide. So as was mentioned earlier, there are the posts that are become available in Ireland can be both permanent or temporary posts. So the permanent posts are advertised depending on the colleagues will deal with the statutory hospitals. For HSE hospitals, the majority of our posts are advertised through the NRS and through PAS, and for permanent, and that is where they are recruited. But there are also posts that become available in all of our hospitals on a locum or a temporary capacity. Just for example, here in Mullingar, within this week, we will be advertising 3 temporary obstetrician posts, consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, and these posts will be filled temporarily, hopefully pending their permanent recruitment through PAS. So that opportunity is there to take up a temporary post pending the recruitment of the permanent position. And you have the very same terms and conditions as whether you're a temporary or a permanent. The temporary post will be what we classify as a specified purpose, and it will go for that purpose until the post is filled. But you may also get a post, say, for maternity leave, for career break, things like that. So there are plenty of opportunities, and it gives an opportunity to see what the Irish Health Service is like prior to taking up a permanent post. Now, all consultants that work within the Irish Health Service must be registered with the Irish Medical Council on the Specialist Division, and that will be discussed later by one of the other colleagues. But you must be on the Specialist Division of the Irish Medical Council registered to take up a consultant post in Ireland. And most of those posts that are available, the locum posts, they are normally advertised through the hospitals locally. The permanent posts are advertised through public jobs, but the locum posts and temporary posts are advertised locally through the hospitals. And if you want to get any details on any services that are coming up or any posts that are coming up, you can contact the hospitals directly, and Medical Manpower will gladly talk you through any issues or any posts that are coming up. So that is me finished. So I'm going to pass you on to Professor Eager, who will deal with the Model 3 Hospital project. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, if that time frame is right for you. So I'm going to follow on from Dr. O'Connor in terms of talking through the types of hospitals that we have in Ireland. So within each of the regions, then we have a mix of hospitals, and we have a thing called the hospital models, which was defined about 15 years ago by the acute medicine program. And those hospitals are from 1 to 4, which I'll come back to in the next slide. In addition to those, we also have a number of specialist hospitals. So we've got maternity, pediatric, orthopedic, rehab, eye, for example. And obviously they have their own roles within the models, the model 2 to 4 system. We also have a mix of what are called voluntary and statutory. Now, the voluntary hospitals are many of the historical hospitals, so some of them will be 150, 200 years old. And then the statutory hospital system is the more recent system, largely since Irish independence, and they all work in parallel and with each other in terms of delivering the health service nationally. Our services will vary across and within models. So, for example, the transplant services, you've got liver transplants happening in a place called St. Vincent's. You've got the renal transplants in Beaumont Hospital and the heart cardiac transplants in the Mater Hospital, all of which are in Dublin. So the services will vary across the models, and if you're looking for a job in any particular hospital, you'll need to see what's unique about that particular hospital. And then the other thing to be aware of is the hospital names do not identify which model a hospital is. So regional hospitals and university hospitals don't necessarily mean one is better or worse than the other. And some of the bigger Model 3 hospitals won't even have either in the name. And the biggest hospital in the state is St. James's, and that's a tertiary Model 4 hospital, and that doesn't have university in its name either. So don't read too much into the names of individual hospitals as to what type of hospital they are, and don't write them off purely because they might have a name that would be different from what you have in your own country. Very briefly about the Model 1 and 2. So the Model 1 hospitals are community and or district hospitals. They don't have any unscheduled care within them, and they're largely under the remit of the local GPs. The Model 2 will admit low acuity patients and typically may have a minor injuries unit and carry out some day surgery locally, and will have some specialised services, but they will not have any emergency department, and they will not have any intensive care. Consultants may work in Model 2s, usually in association with a post in either a Model 3 or a Model 4. Next slide, please. So the majority of the consultant posts are in the Model 3 and the Model 4 sector. So there are 17 Model 3 hospitals in total around the country, and they provide both elective and general surgical services. They admit undifferentiated medical and surgical patients. They will provide ICU services, and depending on the size of the hospital, it may have a HDU as well. They usually will have an acute medical assessment unit, and most medical specialties, common medical specialties, are provided on site. 14 of them also have obstetrics and gynecology and pediatrics, and 6 of them are the trauma units under our national trauma plan. All of them will have a 24/7 emergency department on site, and some of them will, but the services, like I said in the previous slide, services will vary from site to site. In addition to the trauma units, some will have oncology, some will hematology, and others won't. These hospitals are all situated around the major towns around Ireland, largely outside the cities, although there is one in Dublin and one in Cork. Next slide, please. And this shows just a map of where they are, and they're spread all around the country, but as I said, largely outside the cities, bar 2 of the 17. Next slide, please. So the Model 4, there are 9 Model 4 hospitals, and these are your typical tertiary referral centres. They obviously will admit undifferentiated medical and surgical patients. They will generally provide the complex special care and will have category 3 or 3S on-site intensive care units. Again, they will have a 24/7 emergency department. They'll have an acute medical assessment unit, and these will provide a mix of regional and national services. And within those 9, 2 of them are our national major trauma centres, the Manor Hospital in Dublin and Cork University Hospital. And if next slide, please. And these 9 are in the major cities of Dublin, Waterford, Cork, Limerick, and Galway. Next slide, please. Just to give you a general idea of the split of the care, so about 1/3 of the births nationally are in the Model 3 sector, with the remaining 2/3 being in the few Model 4s that have obstetrics and are in our specialist maternity hospitals. There are slightly more emergency attendances in the Model 3s than in the Model 4s, but that's largely explained by the specialist hospitals that exist, particularly in Dublin, and similar to the UK, which have hospitals like Alderhay and Great Ormond Street. We have our Children's Health Ireland to provide specialist paediatric services within Dublin. Outpatient attendances, as you'd expect, are obviously higher in the Model 4s than in the Model 3s. Slightly more generalist medical medicine is provided in the Model 3s compared to Model 4s, and then surgery discharges, again, in view of the size of the hospitals, are slightly higher in the Model 4s than in the Model 3s. But when it comes to our over 65s, these are actually spread quite equally across the country. And when we look per capita for all the distant regions, there's very little difference between the Model 3s and the Model 4s for the over 65 groups, which of course is going to be increasing over the course of the next 10 to 15 years. And next slide, please. So when it comes to deciding a consultant post, and I put this in me personally, I was a consultant in Liverpool, and similar to Dr. Connor, had to make the decision to come back. So what it's usually decided by more than one thing. It's not just the professional considerations, it's also your desired quality of life. And obviously there's issues as regards your spouse, partner, and your family considerations. So it's not just decided on one thing in particular. Next slide, please. And with my particular hat as clinical lead for the Model 3 hospital project, if you were to be considering a post in one of the 17 Model 3s in the country, what I would say to you is, firstly, 10 of the 17 don't have a website. So when you go online, you may find minimal information to begin with. Don't be put off by this. You will see on every advertisement there will be a name and a number, and it will say informal inquiries to, and that person is listed. I would encourage you to make those informal inquiries, okay? They are expected and they are welcomed. It is not considered canvassing. No one would expect you to go and apply for a consultant post without no knowledge or meaningful knowledge of the site you're applying for. If you want to look at, let's say you have an idea to go to one particular region or area, if you want to have an idea of the cost of housing, there are two main websites in the country, Daft and myhome.ie, where you'll see essentially you'll get a very good idea of the costs of housing in that particular area. Obviously, if your spouse or partner has a job, obviously may want to continue in that role. There are local chambers of commerce and other business organizations all across the country, and they can be very useful for a partner or a spouse to explore what the opportunities are for then. And then obviously just general search, browser search for things like schools and sports. Just for information, particularly compared to the UK, there isn't the same split in private and public schools that exist in the UK and Ireland, and the vast majority of children, both at primary or secondary, go to the public public schools, which are the state schools. I know public schools in the UK have a different meaning, but basically the state-funded sector in Ireland, the vast majority of the children just go there, and you don't have to necessarily send them to private schools. I would encourage you to visit the hospital and the area. If you are shortlisted for interview, not to visit the hospital before the interview would be considered very unusual. And again, a bit like trying to do the informal inquiries, I would encourage you to actually make contact with the hospital and visit before you are before any interview. Next slide, please. So just finally, I just want to give you an indication of some of the posts that are available. So in Letterkenny, for example, which is in the northwest, there are posts in breast radiology and in surgery within breast and GI and general surgery. There's geriatric posts. In Cork and Kerry, there are posts in endocrinology and neurology. There you'll find we have a need for geriatricians with our aging population. So posts obviously are also there in Tipperary, which is in the south of the country, also in Kilkenny. There's also the same in Cavan, but there are also, as you can see there, there's a mix of posts there, from obstetrics to anaesthesia, cardiology, radiology in Mullingar, Tullamore, it's hematology, radiology, geriatrics. In Portlaoise, they have requirement for a consultant neurologist and also a consultant in paediatric emergency medicine. So just to give you an idea that there are lots of different jobs across different areas all across the Model 3 sector, and I would encourage you to be looking in detail at some of those. And now I'm going to pass over to Cameron.
Thanks, Professor Eager.
Good afternoon, guys. My name is Dr. Cameron Shah. I'm one of the emergency medicine consultant in Republic of Ireland in Mullingar Regional Hospital. Quite close, I would say, to Prof. Robert Eager, about 30 minutes away from him, which they have a trauma unit working in, but I'm kind of a supporting hospital for them. So can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so I'll just give you a brief background. I'm in Ireland for the last 20 years, so I know the best of both worlds. I've been here, I've been in United Kingdom for about 6 years. First, I stayed in Ireland for about 10 years. In 2014-15, I moved to UK just for a high specialty training in emergency medicine. I trained mostly in London, different parts like Royal London, Newham, Queen's Hospital, Croydon, Guy's. So it was kind of an eye-opener for me. So when I went there, first, as usual, when you move to a different place, you are a little bit hesitant that how will be the system. But one thing that I'll absolutely nail it, that it's very, very same if it comes to London, UK. The clinical floor is very much same. The system is very much same. Patient interaction is very much same. So as a trainee, I find that whole of the system there from an emergency medicine point of view, general acute medicine point of view, was quite similar to Republic of Ireland. I had my family. I didn't want to move my family because I had 4 kids by then, so they all stayed in Cork. And I was commuting from London to Cork, and sometimes will take me 2 months, 3 months. There in London, the main thing that really attracted me in London, it was more organized in way as compared to Republic of Ireland. That's a fact. But then the positive parts that it was very much same to Republic of Ireland in any way from an emergency medicine point of view, because that's the main thing that I'll be talking about. Those 6 years of training, when I moved back from London, it was about in 2020 that I moved back, and I moved back to Mullingar because I wanted to be close to my brother, who was an emergency medicine consultant at that time in Tullamore. And that was my main step to move. Plus, I wanted to move to peripheries in Mullingar because I just wanted to have a country life, and that I'm really attracted to. I had my four kids. My four kids, when we moved from Cork to another county, there was a usual issue getting primary and secondary schools. That was organizing, but yes, I got it very easily. Get organized at all four schools. I got it in. I had my mother with me, who was also had a history of like geriatric frailty. She was living with me. I had to organize GP and everything for her, but those all processes were done very smoothly. I just want to give you my realistic approach. So yes, I had my kids organized in my school. I had my mother organized with my GP and all her frailty care at the same time. It was very positively done. The schools had been excellent. The education has been completely free, and that was very good. Sorry, have we moved to another slide? Yeah. So I think so. I'm going back and forth. My slides are going back and forth. Apologies. I think so. I'm on a wrong slide. Yeah, the next slide. Okay, work-life balance. Okay, fine. Sorry.
Sorry, I think there was a little delay on the line.
Oh, not bother. So from a work-life balance, I mean, that's a realistic thing you have to look for, because it's not that you can give your life to just emergency medicine. You have a lot of things to do in there. So can you get the next slide for me, please, from work-life balance, please? Yeah. The main thing in this, I think so, the work-life balance, here, if you're looking for it, there is about 37 hours per week that we are working here in a work-life balance. I think so. I'm missing a slide, but I'll talk about it. It's okay, no problem. So 37 hours is the usual weekly hour that we work. In UK, it is called, I think so, direct clinical kind of contact or care, which is about 8 programmed activities, which is about coming at 32 hours. And then 8 hours is supporting professional activities, which is about further 8 hours, which comes 40 hours. So 40 hours is the working week for a consultant in UK, while here we have 37 hours. Out of those 37 hours a week, we do about 75% with the direct clinical care. So it is quite similar to that come in UK for how much in contact we have to do with direct clinical care and how much we have a supporting kind of professional activities, the rest of the 10 hours which we have to do in audits, in quality improvement projects, in clinical governance, in morbidity and mortality. So what I'm trying to illustrate that the system is completely quite very similar. So most of the consultants in UK that has been calling me, they are just worried that the system is going to be completely different. And what I want to attract them that the system is completely, almost I would say, same to the UK, which I have worked in, because I can only give examples of UK. Now, the annual leave, which has already been explained by my colleague Danny, it is 30 days of annual leaves, 10 days of your public holidays, which make it about kind of 40 days in total. From a working, it is now from the public only consultant contract. Yes, you have hours from 8 to 10 p.m. on Monday to Friday, and then on Saturdays, it's about 8 to 6 p.m. So work-life balance from work hours is amazing. I live in a countryside. I'm close to every kind of a lake. I can go out. I have 2 dogs. I have a son with special needs. I can go out with him for a walk, take the dogs out easily. Those all lakes and everything are about at a distance of about 5 kilometers, 4 kilometers for them. Most of my kids are involved in any kind of extracurricular activities. They are in canoeing polo. They are doing all their sports. They are doing physical activities like I would say like CrossFits and everything. So if you are as a family person moving from Republic of Ireland, you have all those things that are available for you in a work-life balance and everything. My wife is a housewife. She's there. She is in her CrossFit. She is going all her exercises and everything. So from that point of view, you can choose a lot. I hope I'm getting into the time. Move next slide, please. Now, from professional opportunities, I did my membership exams in acute medicine here. For a while, I wanted to do acute medicine. Then I went into anesthetics. Then I went to a little bit into geriatrics medicine. Then I went to emergency medicine, and I liked the versatility of emergency medicine because I was always in a kind of adrenaline rush. I wanted to do something short attention span. If you're coming to Republic of Ireland, from opportunities, I can say this, that I have now 5 standalone, because I don't have trainees with me currently, but all of those 5, I had the opportunity to supervise them, teach them, and 5 of the candidates, the non-consultant health doctors, have done membership with me. They have finished their membership, full MChem. So those are the guys who are just going and trying to go and achieve their fellowship and everything. So what I'm trying to say, that if you are yourself a supervisor trying to teach a lot, you are a clinical person, there is a lot of opportunities. There is a lot of growth in the sector. At the same time, if you are interested in yourself and trying to progress your own career, so whether it is you want to become an airway fellow, you want to become a trauma fellow, you want to become an ultrasound fellow, all those opportunities are available for you, and they are at your step door, because in Ireland, from a corner to corner, it takes you about 4.5 hours. So if you're going in Dublin, which is about an hour drive away from me, and I want to train in all those different fellowships I want to do, whether it's ultrasound, whether it's a airway fellowship, whether it's in simulation, they're all available for me, and I can do it in my usual time. Whether it's a study leave, whether it is a continued medical education, they are all available. Please, next slide. From a community, first, when I came in about 20 years ago, I would say I would find very few consultants who will be non-Irish. That was a fact. I wasn't finding any consultant in emergency medicine that was non-Irish. I would hardly find one. But now if you look in my department, we're about 4 consultants currently. One is locum, and 3 of consultants are regular, and 3 out of those 4 consultants are non-Irish. They were trainees. We have gone through the core training, and we have come across. So whether as a consultant you are looking for a community from your own side, if you have come from abroad, whether it's from Pakistan, whether it's from Bangladesh, whether it's from Sudan, you will find big communities, big gathering together from that point of view, from a work-life balance. As an emergency medicine, if you're looking, we have a close interaction with each other. We have constantly kind of forums we are getting together to improve services and everything. So if you find it, it is very supporting in that point of view. Then at the same time, from Irish Medical Council, because I'm usually asked a question that if we are moving to Ireland, how will be the process? So simple example, I as an emergency medicine consultant is affiliated with Royal College in Emergency Medicine. The same Royal College of Physicians of Ireland is there with Royal College of Physicians of UK. It took me only a week to get on a specialist register in Ireland. So that's how simple it can be for your registration process. But in summarizing, take that fear out of yourself. It has a lot to offer in Ireland. And yes, there is a lucrative pay, which is a fact, which is a reality. You cannot walk away from it. The pay is really supporting to you. And you are starting from somewhere 231,000, going up to 280,000. Your continued medical education, CPD funds, your innovation funds are amazing. I was talking to one of the consultants there, and they were talking to me that their innovative funds were around, it's a fact, was tiny as compared to ours. So if you want to progress your own career, you want to progress your department, you want to make your department, you have every kind of support, either from your local hospital or whether on a forum level on high, you have every support and you can really make out of it. So what I'm saying that in Ireland, as a person that I have moved from Pakistan to Ireland, then settled there, then moved back to UK, and then came to UK, and I let my family being here. So there is something really attractive for me as a professional, as an individual, to come back here. So there is a lot of positives to offer in this place. But if you want to join this place, get in contact with a person, with your friend who has already been there, who's already has seen the best of both. I have seen here, trained here, I have trained in UK, I've come back here, and I would always prefer to stay here because there is every kind of opportunity from your personal, from your professional growth. So these are the things, they are not statistics, but these are my realistic feelings that I can express in form of this community. That's all. Yes, salaries are
great.
competitive.
Thanks very much, Dr. Shah. That's fascinating. It's great to hear your story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have a very short survey, literally just a minute of your time for those of you on the call. You can scan the QR code, or if that doesn't work for you, in the chat, you'll see the link appear. And the survey asks a couple of very simple questions. What are you most interested in hearing about? What do you perceive as any challenges associated with coming to Ireland, and any other information that you'd like to hear about? So if you could just take literally a minute to do that survey, we would really appreciate it, and we'll tell you the results at the end. In summary, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for putting in your answers there. We're going to move on now to the nitty-gritty, if you like, of the applications processes. And Miss Louise McEntee from Public Jobs, who Ethna mentioned earlier, is going to cover the public jobs section, and I will talk about the voluntaries. So I'll hand over to you, Louise.
Thank you, Ailish. Hello, everybody. My name is Louise McEntee, and I am the Talent Acquisition Lead for the Public Service recruitment. So medical consultant recruitment falls under my remit. So just to give you kind of a brief kind of outline of our activities so far. So far this year, we've received 174 requests to fill positions. 151 posts have been advertised. So that would mean that the remaining posts would have been taken from panels that would currently be in place. We've held 198 shortlisting and interview boards. And so far this year, we've recommended 71 people to consultant positions. So I think the 6 regions were covered earlier. So we recruit for the 6 regions. So yeah, thank you. Next slide. So this is just our website, Public Jobs. So when you go onto our website, www.publicjobs.ie, you can see there at the top, there's a medical consultants page. So you just click on that and that will bring you to the next page. And go to the next slide, please. So this page just outlines and gives you information on the consultant roles, the salaries, leave, just general information. And then if we go to the next slide. So the consultant hub. So what it gives you there is all the vacancies, the benefits. It gives you background information on hospital and community groups. It gives you information on our recruitment process and the company's framework used. It also lists out the stages involved in our recruitment competitions, how to register, apply, details on shortlisting interviews, and then the final clearance stage. So the next slide, please. So first off, you need to register on our website on public jobs. So just to ensure that it's a current email and phone number, as all our correspondence will issue to you through the information that you give us there. So you can set up job alerts under the medical consultants on the page. So what happens then is once we advertise a position in your specialty area, you will get an email or a text, whichever you select, informing you that a job is now live on public jobs. So we go to the next page, please. So these are the specialty areas where you can set up job alerts. So any of those areas that you select, once a position becomes available, you'll be notified to go on to public jobs to view the vacancy. Next slide, please. So then we have the application stage. So once you receive a job alert, as I said, you go on to follow the link onto the website. So there you'll have a candidate information booklet which will outline the essential criteria, the role description, terms and conditions, all the information that you need. So you do need to be registered with the IMC in the specialist area required. So you need to complete all sections of the application form, just to note that only fully completed and submitted forms will be accepted. So, and they have to be submitted before the closing date. So I'm just going to briefly go through the register because I know my colleague Anne's going to go through this in detail. So you must be registered as a specialist in the relevant specialty area that you're applying for. So you must be registered within 180 days of interview. So all information on that can be found on the Medical Council of Ireland website. So the next page, please. So then following application stage, we have shortlisting. So the criteria for shortlisting is based on the requirements of the post. So, and all that information is in the candidate information booklet. So just to point out that, you know, failure to provide or include information regarding the requirements may result in you not being called forward to the next stage of the selection process. So what I would say is put in as much information as you can into your application form. The next slide, please. So then, should you be successful at shortlisting, you'll be invited to interview. So interviews are currently conducted via Zoom. Some may be held on site, but you'll be given full information prior to this. Familiarization material goes out to you before your interview process, just outlining and explaining everything that will be expected of you. So prior to your interview, we do require some things from you. So it would be a scanned copy of photo ID, a declaration just to say that this is in fact your ID. We'll need to contact 3 referees. You would be given a presentation topic, so we would need a copy of this prior to the interview. And then we also do ask that candidates just to attend a Zoom test just to make sure that your device is compatible and that everything will go smoothly on the day. So next. So the interview board format. So there are 2 interview board types. We have a section 62 and a non-section 62. So the section 62 would be for a teaching hospital. So we would have an independent chairperson. We would have a consultant in a relevant specialty. They would be exterior to the hospital that we would be employing for. There would be clinical director by 2 from the hospital. There would be an academic, and then we'd have the hospital CEO or senior management nominee. So then for the non-section 62, we would have the chairperson, we would have the external in the specialty area, we would have 2 nominees from the hospital, and then we'd have the hospital CEO or senior management nominee. So for public jobs, we select the chairperson, the relevant external expert, and we would also have a public jobs representative on the board to take notes and to make sure that it's all done within the codes of practice. Sorry, next slide, please. So then, should you be successful at interview, we move on to the clearance stage. So you receive a letter from the clearance section outlining documents that we need to proceed. So identification, so your medical registration with the IMC, we would need a copy of your qualifications, medical confirmation, candidates will have to attend for a medical. There's Garda vetting. If you've lived abroad for more than 6 months during your lifetime since you were 18, we will need to see international police clearance. The referees, we'll need to speak to your referees, previous employer reports, and then the final stage would be your current employer report. But we would not approach your current employer without your permission. So candidates' medical and bloods, if required, will be processed. So this is for EPP posts. So the medicals are currently provided by Corporate Health Ireland, but all that information will go out to you from us. So once that is done and everything is successful and all clear, then a letter of recommendation is issued from us to the National Recruitment Service, who then take over and go into the contract stage. So thank you very much for your time. I'll hand you back to Ailish now, who will go through the process for the voluntary hospitals.
Thanks very much, Louise. And just briefly, to explain the voluntary hospitals, then there are more than 20 voluntary hospitals in Ireland. From your perspective, the two groups of hospitals, there's no difference in status or anything between them. So Louise has gone through the HSE statutory hospitals recruitment process, and the only real difference from your perspective is in the recruitment process and how jobs are advertised. The voluntary hospitals are mainly state funded, but they're sometimes owned, as Professor Eager said earlier, by private bodies for historical reasons. But if you ask the average person in Ireland whether their local hospital was voluntary or HSE statutory, they probably wouldn't know. So they provide the same services under the same terms and conditions of employment, and they're spread throughout the country from level 2 to level 4 hospitals. So the consultant recruitment in the voluntary hospitals, and I have a list of them included in the presentation so that you will know exactly which is which. The consultant recruitment is managed directly by the hospital medical manpower team from advertising to appointment. It usually takes about 4 to 6 months. The interview panels have 6 to 9 members, similar to what Louise outlined there. And although the voluntary hospital is the employer, the terms of the Public Only Consultants Contract 2023 apply just the same as they do in the HSE and statutory hospitals. So there is no difference there. So the process then is, first of all, to check the hospital website. So have a look at the list of hospitals and ones you might be interested in. And we will talk shortly about how to know when posts have been approved, maybe before they're even advertised, or definitely before they're advertised. And have a look at the voluntary hospital website. And any upcoming appointments, open positions will be posted directly by medical manpower at each site. Apply via your CV directly to the hospital medical manpower department or as per the details. You will get an acknowledgement. There'll be a shortlisting process and an interview invite directly from the hospital again. And if successful, screening, so interview and clearance, again, very similar to what Louise has outlined. If that's completed and you're offered the position, then your onboarding, as we call it, including the details of your contracting start date and so on, payroll, is managed directly by that individual hospital medical manpower department. So that's just to be aware of. This is the list of voluntary hospitals. I'm not going to go through them. We're just leaving them there on the presentation as a reference for you so that you know which ones are the voluntaries that you need to look at individually, and all other large hospitals. We do have private hospitals in Ireland as well. They're outside the remit of this discussion, which is about the public hospital, the public health service in Ireland. But all of the other public hospitals then would fall under the system outlined by Louise. Okay, I will hand over then to Ms. Anne Byrne, who is the Registration Specialist Manager, as mentioned earlier, in the Medical Council, and we're delighted to have Anne on the call.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Anne, and I am the Specialist Registration Manager. I've been with the Medical Council for the last 10 years. So to start off, I'll just go through our legislation. We're abided by the Medical Practitioners Act, and that just helps us set out the eligibility for registration, the divisions of the register. Doctors, if you're working or practicing medicine in the Republic of Ireland, you need to be on the register. We also work off the EU directive, and that's just for applicants that are coming from EU member state. We are abided by them. We have to abide by them rules, and there's freedom of movement there. So we can just go on to the next slide then. So there's two different ways you can get onto the specialist register. So you can get on as an EU applicant. So we look at where you have qualified, where you've done your specialist training. And then we also have another route, which is kind of a portfolio pathway, which is called the category E. So I'm just going to start off with the automatic recognition route, which is for EU applicants. So there's 4 different routes. So you can just go on to the next slide and I'll just go through each one. Thank you. So Route 1, this is for applicants that hold a basic medical degree that's accredited, and we usually go by what's on the World Directory of Medical Skills. And then their specialist qualification also needs to be listed in the directive. Their title of their specialist qualification and their specialty needs to be recognised in Ireland and in the member state that the applicant is coming from. So that's really important, that if you are working in a specialty in your member state and it's not recognised in Ireland, you won't be granted registration. When you're applying, you can apply online. So you can just go to the next slide, and this just shows you what the directive looks like. So what we do is we need to ensure that your qualification is listed on the directive. So directive has all countries and it gives the title of your qualification and when that country joined the EU. And you can just go on to the next slide there. And this is how we check the specialties. So there are some specialties that are recognised in Ireland and they're not recognised in other member states. So what we have to do is we have to check Annex 5.1.3 and ensure that the title is listed for Ireland and is listed for the country that you're coming from. And all this information again is available on the directive and on our website. So if you can check that prior to applying for registration. So you can just go to the next slide, please. Then we have Route 2, which is acquired rights. And acquired rights is for doctors who have done specialist training in an EU member state. However, they might have done it before that country has joined the EU. They might have done it as a non-formal training program in that member state. But they do still have acquired rights. So the way it works is when you're coming to the Medical Council via the automatic recognition route, we go by what your member state competent authority states. So if they're stating that you can apply under acquired rights, we have to take that for face value. So when you're coming to Ireland and if your qualification is not listed on the directive, we suggest that you go to the competent authority in your member state, explain your situation, and they will let you know what you are eligible for. There is a number of articles within the directive, so I don't touch on every single one because there's too many, but there is workarounds. So we always suggest go to the member state's home country, and the competent authority will let you know. So you can just go to the next slide. Thank you. Then there's Route 3, and this is for applicants who have done their specialist training outside an EU member state. So if you've done your training outside an EU member state, but you've worked in that specialty in an EU member state, well, then you are classed as an EU applicant. For example, if you've done your specialist training in Peru, and then you come and you go and work in Spain for 3 years in that specialty, you are then classed as an EU applicant and you get to apply under the directive via the automatic recognition route. So then just on to the next slide. And finally, Route 4 in the automatic recognition route. So this is a list of qualifications that the council have decided to accept under section 47(1)(f) of the MPA. There's a number of qualifications on that at the moment. We have all our UK CCTs and some specific CSER qualifications on that since post-Brexit. And we also have a number of qualifications from Australia and New Zealand. The list is grown, and how qualifications are added to that list is that the training body will make contact with the medical council, and they will nominate a qualification to be added to this list, and then essentially the council makes that final decision whether that qualification can be added to that list. And we if an applicant is applying with one of those qualifications, they can apply through the automatic recognition route. So you can just go to the next slide. So the application process for EU applicants is they apply online. It's very simple. They have to pay an assessment fee and they can upload their documents. The checklist is on the application form and it's on the website. So it's very simple. You pay an application fee, which is €640 for specialist. And once your application is assessed, then you'll be required to pay the registration fee. And the registration fee will cover you until our renewal. And our renewal happens every summertime. And the registration fee is €560 for the first 3 years. And then it goes to €605. So you can just go to the next slide. Oh, yeah, perfect. So now we're on to the second route of specialist registration, and this is for non-EU qualified doctors, and we call it internally our Cat A. It's a portfolio pathway, and we do get EU applicants that apply through this route as well, but it's mostly just non-EU qualified doctors. And what essentially is that an application, a doctor is required to complete an application pack, and it's sent off to the training body to be their experience to be evaluated. So you can just go to the next slide there. Perfect, thank you. So the postgraduate training bodies assess these applications and they make a recommendation. So there's obviously the postgraduate training bodies, and each faculty for their specialties, whatever the specialty is, you will complete the application pack and then we send it off to that training body. They will assess the application, all your training and experience it, and match it off the postgraduate training program that is in for that specialty currently in Ireland. It's very important to note that the training bodies only send the recommendation. So they can send the positive recommendation, and at that point, the medical council will continue with your application, the registration department, and activate your registration. However, the training body can recommend they can give you a negative recommendation, and when they give a negative recommendation, they will always give deficits on how you can overcome that negative recommendation. If you do receive a negative recommendation, so you can just go on to the next slide, sorry. So if you do receive a negative recommendation from the postgraduate training body, you are given 28 days to do a written review, which essentially that is if one of the deficits was, for an example, you need to do a course and you have done that course while your application was under review, you have 28 days to provide that evidence. If you are unsuccessful again, then you will go through our committee life cycle, which you can go on just to the next slide there, and I kind of go into that a little bit. Oh, apologies. Actually, no, I'm on the application pack. So this is just screenshots of what the application pack, the next couple of slides are like this. So the application pack is built up of 18 separator dividers, and it goes from everything from your demographics all the way up to your structured reference forms, your audit, your logbooks, audit history, everything that you want to provide. It's in the applicant's best interest to provide as much information as possible. There is a guidance document on the application pack that will give you some guidelines on what is required. So you can just go on to the next slide there. Perfect. So you can just see some screenshots. So there's post-held forms, evidence of basic specialist training, formal qualifications, structured CVs. So it's a very large portfolio. We are online at the moment, so you can do all this online and scan it onto the system and send it over to us. So it's all it's a little bit easier than it was in the past. So you can just go to the next slide. Thank you. So this is then what the guidance document will look like. So it gives you some guidance before you actually go ahead and do your whole application. So it'll give you exams, and so that would work out in your favor if you have them. And you can just go to the next slide. Perfect. So this is the decision-making process. So like I said, the PGTB make a recommendation, but the final decision is with the council. So if you receive a positive recommendation, you are just put onto the specialist register, you go through the registration process. However, if you've received a negative recommendation, you do go through our registration adjudication committee. And if you go through that process, you can provide extra documentation to support your application. Our RAC committee can put more of a holistic approach to making a decision on your application. If the RAC can overturn the PGTB's recommendation, they can modify the deficits, or they can agree with the PGTB recommendation. If they agree with the PGTB recommendation, you are given the opportunity for an appeal. So you can appeal that decision. And following on from that, then you go to another committee, which is our registration and continuing practice committee, and they make that final decision. So there's 3 opportunities that you can go through to appeal the negative recommendation. However, once it gets to RCPC, they make that the final decision. So you can just go to the next slide. I think I could be, yeah, that's me done. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks very much, Anne. That was very informative. I'm going to talk a little bit about relocation supports then that come into play for anyone who's successful. First of all, I'm just going to do a very quick little recap on the permanent consultant vacancies. So the voluntary hospitals, as we said, are advertised by the individual hospital, and other HSE hospitals and community-based positions are advertised on publicjobs.ie. I'm also going to talk to you in a moment about the HSE's Career Hub, where you may register, and you will find the vast majority of jobs registered made available to you there in terms of information about them. A very good thing to know, sorry, just back one slide, please, Connor, thanks. A very good thing to know is that prior to advertising, all permanent consultant posts in both categories of hospital must be approved by the Consultant Applications Advisory Committee, known as CAC in Ireland. And the list of approved posts is published monthly at this link. So you will see all permanent consultant posts that are approved by the committee there, and those posts are then handled individually by the hiring organisation. So it's published monthly. You will see what positions, I think it was Dr. O'Connor mentioned that there was a CAC meeting today. So you will see shortly what new positions have been approved, and that gives you the opportunity to maybe plan to look at those, to contact the hiring hospital, be they voluntary or statutory, and find out some more about it before they're advertised. So that's a really useful piece of planning information, if you like, for you. Okay, so to move on to assuming you're successful, then a relocation package of up to 4,160 is available to candidates from EU or UK countries, and a little bit more for candidates moving, 4,700 for candidates moving from further afield. You must be on a contract of 2 years or more, so if you're applying for a locum post, just be careful about that. And it's to assist with the cost of flights and additional accommodation. I mentioned the HSE Career Hub. I would strongly recommend that you visit the HSE Career Hub. There's a wealth of information in there. You will also have the opportunity to register your interest in your specialty and to be automatically notified of any jobs that are coming up there, both on the public jobs side of things, but also many of the other jobs from hospitals that are not recruiting through the public health or public jobs system. So guidance on settling in then. So we understand it's not just financial, and again, Dr. Shah and all of our clinicians, in fact, who have moved around have mentioned the fact that settling in professionally and personally is more than a financial and a career decision. And we have lots of information on the Career Hub, but also, again, lots of international staff have very successfully moved to the health service here. So you will find a warm welcome and plenty of support from your managers, your mentors, and your colleagues. Next slide, please. So I'm now going to hand over to Barbara to talk about employment permits, and we're just coming to the Q&A then after that.
Thank you very much, Ailish. I won't take too much time, just doing an overview of employment permits and visas. So firstly, who does and doesn't need one? Citizens of the European Economic Area, the UK or Switzerland, do not require any kind of employment permit or visa to work in Ireland. But qualified doctors that are not from do not hold citizenship within the EEA, UK or Switzerland, do need a permit and a visa. So the employment permit is the permission to work in the state. It's not the permission to enter or reside in that state. And that immigration permission is sought separately and is directly granted by the Minister for Justice. So if you are coming to work with us in a country that isn't EEA, UK or Switzerland, you apply for the visa yourself. And once you're in Ireland, then you can register here to get an IORP or a residence permit. So just to talk a little bit more about permits and the kind of benefits that particular permits confer. Medical practitioners are on the list for critical skills work permit. So you can apply for those a couple of months in advance of your start date once you have your job offer here. And just to let you know that there's no fee to you payable where you're coming to work for us in the HSE or the public health system. So you need to have your job offer and you need to be directly employed and paid by your employer in Ireland. So what can happen then is regarding your family and your dependents, once you have the critical skills work permit, you can bring your family to live with you in Ireland. They will need to probably apply for separate visas to enter and their own IORP or resident permit card. Your spouse or your civil partner can get the stamp 1G IORP, so they can work without a work permit, and your other family members then can also apply for their own dependent work permits. The way it will work if you're coming to work for us and you need a work permit is we apply for more work permits as a health service than any other sector in the state. So the HR department or recruitment department that's recruiting you has a lot of expertise in terms of applying for work permits. So that should be a relatively quick process. So once we've issued you with a contract, we will apply for the work permit completely on your behalf. And both us and you will get a copy of the permit once it's issued, and then it's for you to go onto that Irish immigration site and contact your local Irish embassy or consulate, and there's a list online of those, and apply for your own visa to enter the state. So just a little bit about the critical skills work permit then. So it does offer a number of benefits to you, and particularly there's a fast track path to long-term residency stamp 4 immigration permission after 2 years, and that will allow you unrestricted right to work without an employment permit. So that's really one of the main benefits. There's also that immediate family reunification. And it is also kind of a flexible permit in that you can switch employers or roles more easily after a certain period. It's usually about 9 months. So then what happens after you get your permit? You won't ever need to apply for another permit again. Your initial permit will be issued for a 2-year period, and then after that you can have this stamp 4 permission, so you can live and work here without your permit. So it'll be critical skills permit, then stamp 4, and the stamp 4 can be renewed, and then once you've been resident here for 5 years, you can apply for citizenship by naturalisation. So that's really a brief overview of visas, work permits, and residency permissions.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Barbara. Just looking at some of the questions coming in, quite a lot of the questions are quite detailed and personal circumstances. So I think we'll have to get back to those people by email. If you've put in a question and haven't included an email address, a detailed question, please pop another one in the next couple of minutes with your email address and we'll be able to respond to you. Some of the more general ones, adverts for positions in Model 4 hospitals. Some people not seeing as many adverts for positions in Model 4 hospitals. It may be the case that as some of the Model 4s are voluntary hospitals, maybe you're not seeing them on publicjobs.ie. So I would recommend looking at the individual websites of those Model 4 hospitals to ensure that you're capturing all the jobs. We have a couple of questions as well about difficulty getting a permanent role. So people who may have applied in the past. Again, a lot of those questions were quite specific. It's probably an idea, maybe, as was suggested by some of my colleagues earlier, to consider a locum role, pending applying for a specialist position. I don't know, maybe Danny might be able to give some experience of people applying for maybe a locum role in advance of being able to apply for a consultant role.
Yeah, actually, we're just speaking to Robert earlier on there on our Model 3 project. We actually have got 2 consultants at the moment that are going to permanent appointment, having filled the roles initially as in a temporary capacity and a local capacity while we are waiting for the post to be advertised permanently. So it is a route through that you can apply for the post in a temporary capacity first while you're waiting for the permanent post to be approved. And it gives you an idea of what it's going to be like working in the post and working in the service as well. So just here in Mullingar ourselves, we've got 2 that will be appointed hopefully on the 1st of October, having gone through that route, having occupied the post temporarily first.
That's great. Thanks, Danny. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in on that one. No? Okay, that's great. All of the other questions that I'm seeing at the moment are very, very specific. That somebody has asked about nurse practitioners' roles, which we won't be able to cover on this webinar, but I would recommend going on to the Career Hub, because the Career Hub, the HSE Career Hub, and the link is in the presentation, has information across, all posts in the HSE and all of the public health service. So I think that's it, unless we have any other questions popped up, more general ones. No? Okay, that's it. I'll hand over to Ethna maybe to close.
Thank you so much to my colleagues for their time, but also to you. Hopefully, as future employees, we really look forward to further discussions with you. As Ailish said, all of your questions, and I know some of them are quite individual, we will respond to them as much as possible. Just please ensure that you have your email address in there. We'll also distribute the slides from the presentation to all those who registered, and including yourselves. And we'll also, within our slides as well, we'll include the websites of the voluntary hospitals as well. And I think so. I mean, if there's any other further questions or any other comments that any of my colleagues would like to make, we can close it off here. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.